Welcome back. CAD 37 CATIA surfacing class. We're going to cover disassembling. Okay, we did the joining command on the previous video. One thing that was missing in the joining tutorial was joining curves. So we were able to join surfaces, but there was nothing on curves. Okay, so maybe I'll demonstrate it on this video. Okay, so we're going to cover disassembling. It's the opposite of joining. Okay, so let's go ahead and right-click copy and go to the internet and Control V, paste. Okay, so let's talk about disassembling. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our CATIA file. And open. All right, let me change the background color. Tools, options. If you want to change the color of the geometry, go for it. It's just hard to see these lines. So I'm going to go to General, Display, tab over to see the Visualization tab. Click on it. And for background, I'm going to go to white. And OK. There it is. Now we can see the curves. All right, so all these have been joined as one. You can see, so you had a circle created, you had a sketch of a rectangle, and a sketch of a spline. Okay, so if I go into the background, the no-show layer, okay, so we had a sketch 1, which created the spline, sketch 2 created the rectangle, and the circle command, using the point as a parent, created circle, and then they were all joined as one. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so all these elements were joined as one. Okay, so this is joining curves. Let's go ahead and double click on it so we can see how that was joined. Okay, so as you can see, all sketches or curves were joined as one. Notice how they turned off check connectivity. If I turn that on, check connectivity, hit preview. See, it's telling me, hey, these are not connected. They're not even touching, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off. Hit yes, and it tells you, hey, see, there's a gap between these two, a gap between these, so they're not connected. So I can just turn off that option and preview, and it does accept it. Okay, so typically when you join curves, you want them connected. Something like this is rare. Okay, so I'm going to just cancel out of this. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite of join. So let's go back to the tutorial. Okay, so these elements were joined. And we have the option to disassemble. Okay, so we can disassemble, break it up into its elements or cells, right? Okay, so we're going to have the option of breaking them up into individual pieces or individual profiles. Okay, so we do have that option. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so teacher, why don't we just delete the join? Like, yeah, that makes it too easy, right? Okay, so instead of disassembling, can we just delete the join? Yep, but I want to show you how to use this command, disassemble. It's actually very useful. All right, so let's go over to the Generative Shape Design workbench. Currently, I'm in part design. So let me go over to Generative Shape Design. Okay, so when do you use disassemble? So here we go to the drop down. Here we have disassemble. Okay. The times I use disassemble is when I have an old model or something that was provided by the customer, and they either did it in CATIA or in a different software, but they don't give you the history of how the part was made. So they can send it to you as an IGES file or step file. So if I complete my project, my modeling, right? and I want to send it out for quote or send it to a machine shop that's going to make the part for us, I'll typically save it as a step file or IGES, and it'll lose all the history of how the part was made. Okay, so let me demonstrate this, how it would look. So let me go ahead and insert a geoset first. My geoset. And OK. All right, so the way I would do this, let's say I was done. I got to send this over to a machine shop to give us a quote or make the part for us. So what you would do is File, Save As. I'm just going to walk you through it, but I'm not going to actually do this Save As part. I'm just going to show you how I would do it. So let's say, all right, here's my file. And instead of saving it as a CATIA part, I'm going to save it as a IGES or as a step. Oh, don't have the step license. A step or .stp file. We'll save it as a solid if there is a solid. And IGES will not save it as a solid. It'll save it as an empty shell, right? And it'll save wireframe and surfaces. So you pick the option and then you save it. Okay, so if I was saving it as an IGES, click IGES, and then I would save it. And then send it off to the machine shop. You don't have to have CATIA or SolidWorks or Mastercam. So we save it as something that they can open it in. So IGES and step files you can open in other softwares. You may need to purchase a license to be able to open it. Okay, so let me just cancel out of this. Okay, so I'm going to take this join, right click, copy. And then I'm in my geoset, I'm going to paste it. I'm going to right click, paste special. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break all its links, its history, its parents, its grandparents. I'm going to hit paste special. As a result, okay, so I'm not going to have any links, no history. As a result, and OK, 3, 2, 1, OK. So notice this is what the machine shop would get if I was to send them an IGES or step file. It would just send a file with no history of how it was made. So they would not be able to see all this. Let me go ahead and hide all this here. I'm going to hide it. So here's my new curve. Oh, it's hard to see because it's white. Let me go ahead and give it some color. Right click properties. So we have white on white, so it's hard to see. Let me give it some color. I'll make it blue. Okay, and let me give my geoset some color also. Or I can go back to the dark background. Okay, I'm going to right click properties. Any new geometry, I'll have it a different color. Let's see, so I'm going to give my geoset some color. Let's go with green. Make the lines thicker. And OK. So any new geometry I create will be green in this geoset. All right, so this is the way you would use Disassemble. Okay, so typically you would have something like this. It could be curves with no history or surfaces with no history. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Disassemble. Okay, so go to the drop down where you have Join and go to Disassemble. Okay, so it's waiting for me to pick something to disassemble. Okay, I'm going to pick curve 1. Now it's a little hard to see. It's my graphics on my computer. Yours probably will show up a lot better. So it's saying, hey, do you want to break it up into 7 separate pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 and 7. I think the circle's made up of 2 arcs. Or you have a second option. Or do you want to break it up into 3 profiles? 1, 2, 3. Let's go back to the tutorial. So you have the option. Let's go back. Breaking it up into 7 separate cells, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or 3 separate domains or profiles. 1, 2, 3. So you have that option. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, let me do the first one. 7 different cells, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and don't blink in 3, 2, 1. Okay, don't blink. Did you blink? Don't blink. It's processing. It's breaking it up. Bam, there it is. Okay, so this is the original one. Let me hide the original one that had everything joined as one and hide. So there it is. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 separate entities. Okay, so we have an arc, another arc, a line, next line, line 3, line 4, and the spline, right? And don't forget we have 2 arcs making a circle. All right, so that's what we did. And notice there's no history. As the red lightning bolts, it doesn't show you the history that it came from curve 1. Okay, so there's no knowledge of self for these elements. Okay, so let me hit undo it, and I'll pick the second option, 3 profiles. So I'm going to hit undo. Okay, let me hit undo a few times, undo, or Control Z, undo, undo. There is a limit as to how far I can go with undo. Keep hitting undo, there it is. Okay, so I'm back to the original one. Okay, so I'm going to disassemble again, disassemble. And I'm going to break this up, disassemble again. And this time I'm going to pick domains or profiles. So it's going to be 3 profiles and 3, 2, 1, okay. It's going to break it up into 3. There it is. Let me hide the original one. Hide. And there's my 3 new separate profiles. Okay, so we have circle, rectangle, spline. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what's the big deal about disassembling? It comes in handy, especially if you're working on a surface that you need to extend. Okay, and I'll demonstrate that in a later video. I use it a lot, especially when I'm doing tool design, creating molds for, let's say, a skin of aluminum that goes on an aircraft, or carbon fiber portion of a fuselage. When a customer that designs the plane that turns around and gives you part of that aircraft for you to machine or to sheet metal form, they don't give you the entire history, so you need to go in and disassemble the surface. So I don't use it with curves, I mostly use it with surfaces. So if I go back to the tutorial from the join command, if I go back to the tutorial from the previous video, so here's something that's very common. They'll send you a surface and you want to break it up so you can extend it. Okay, so let me duplicate what type of file you would be getting from the customer. I'm going to copy this join 1 from our previous tutorial. I'm going to right click paste special to simulate what you would get from the customer and a result. Okay, so there it is. You'll see a surface with the red lightning bolt letting you know there's no history. Let me hide the original one. I'm going to hide the original one, the one with knowledge. Okay, so you're not going to get the history when the customer sends you a part or a surface. They'll just tell you, master surface, or fuselage surface, or fuselage OML surface, or wing surface. Okay, so it'll be labeled typically as some type of surface, OML, fuselage surface, wing surface, and let's say you wanted to create a mold, right? So just like we did on the second video of the join command, sometimes you need to create a solid to create a mold, to create a portion of a fuselage. So something similar to what you see here, right? So you want to form a skin on the fuselage or wing, and you need to create this solid, this mold, so you can shape the sheet metal in your shop. All right, it's kind of like baking cupcakes, right? You get the mold, right? Your cupcakes, usually made out of a metal or a plastic or something that you can cook with, right? Or bake with. And the result would be your cake or muffin, right? In this case, the solid is the mold to shape or create. Obviously, this is way too small for something like this. We would create a larger one. All right, so if I go back to the previous CATIA part. Here it is. So sometimes you want to break it up so you can extend it or clean it up a little bit. So this is very common. I'll take the surface, right? And I'm going to disassemble it into its separate elements. So disassemble. And it recognizes that there's only two, right? We don't want to break it up into one. We actually want two separate pieces. Break it up. And okay. Now it creates two separate surfaces from the original one. Let me hide the original one. The original non-smart or no history or knowledge of self. I'll hide it. So now we have two separate patches. Let me color one of them just so you can see that they are separate. I'll color one of them, keep one as vanilla, and the other one I'll change it to something different, whatever, there it is. So now it's two separate patches, right? So it comes in handy because now you can try and extend it, or maybe even try and find the original parent surface. So sometimes a surface will extend on you, trying to go back to its roots. It'll try and remember. And that would be the next one. It would be a disassemble. I'm going to take untrim, and I'll demonstrate that in a later video. Okay, so let's go back to the tutorial. And that's it. We're actually done with this tutorial. And later on, I will demonstrate the join, disassemble, and untrim command on how you actually use it on customer surfaces, whether it's fuselage, a wing, or a surface of a dashboard on a vehicle or the hood of a car. All right, so that's the end of this video.